people take things personally, and they really shouldn't, because I think if someone doesn't want to go out with somebody again, they really shouldn't take it personally. It just means that's not your person. That's all it is. It's not that they weren't tall enough or they weren't pretty enough or they weren't rich enough. It's nothing to really do with that. It just means that it wasn't the right person. And that means you need to meet the next person, and God willing, that will be your mate. That's a big misunderstanding. It's something they don't really see, that it's like people are feeling that they're being rejected or turned down. But I tell them it's actually a blessing, because that means their process is shortened, and that means the right person will come to them in time. They don't want to waste their time with someone that's not for them.
That is the voice of Rachel Brown. Rachel is the founder of Jewish Matchmaking New York and has been matchmaking long before dating apps were even a thing. In fact, Rachel started at age 12 by rearranging dinner party seating charts because she could already see who belonged together. This is Harmony Talk, a podcast where dreamers and doers share the human stories behind achievement and impact. Each conversation is made possible by AM Skyer, sponsor of Harmony Talk, and a partner to people and organizations who make communities stronger. I'm your host, Greg Frigoletto. Rachel Brown believes finding a life partner is not about algorithms. It's about intention, timing, and truly getting to know people. With Valentine's Day fast approaching, love is everywhere, or perhaps it can be. Today we'll hear Rachel tell us how she has helped countless people cut through the noise, get honest about what they want, and actually build lasting relationships. This is not about swiping. It's about the pursuit of one love, one soul. Rachel, welcome to Harmony Talk.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No, it's absolutely our pleasure to have you, and I'm super excited to have this conversation today, especially because this episode will air a little bit before Valentine's Day, so it'll be a great segue into Valentine's Day. So to begin, I'd like to talk about not your childhood back when you were age 12 and already on the path to being a matchmaker. Prior to being a matchmaker, you were a successful entrepreneur. Among other things, you owned and sold a successful jewelry business. And then after that, you got into matchmaking. And at what point did you decide that being a professional matchmaker was a career path that you could take?
Well, it was actually in the moment when I received a call one day when someone said to me, "Hello, is this Rachel Brown, the matchmaker?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And why did I get that call? Because prior to that, I was just setting up a lot of people. I was getting calls from friends saying, "I'm so sick of the apps. I'm not meeting anybody. I know, Rachel, you lived in New York basically your whole life. You know so many people and you have such a giant network. Help me out here." So I started setting people up, and I didn't really think that much of it. I had sold my business and I was wondering what I was going to do next, but I wasn't really in a rush to do anything. I was waiting to kind of see what came along. And little did I know that this was what came along until I got that call. And then I heard those words, "Is this the matchmaker?" And so I heard the words that I spoke, "Yes, it is." And that was it after that.
That's an interesting way to get in it. And oftentimes when people are in a specific career, they want to have some sort of, satisfaction or fulfillment from the career. So when you're in a matchmaking business like you are, what makes this feel like purpose-driven work for you?
It's purpose-driven when I feel it's actually that I'm just a channel and I'm not really doing this, because I feel that, it actually says in a portion of the Torah that finding one's mate is as hard as splitting the Red Sea. So God is the one, or let's just say our creator, your higher power. He's the one who's finding the matches. I'm not doing it. I'm a channel, and this is really a calling.
So you've talked about that. So talk to me about how you decided, or when did you feel as though this was a calling? What makes it feel that way?
What makes it feel that way is that, people are thanking me a lot. I met this person. I really like them. Thank you so much. And they're attributing it to my setting them up on dates, setting them up with certain matches. And I guess being able to read people well, which I always knew I was intuitive, but I never really thought to this extent. But again, that's why I feel like it's not me, but I feel like it's a calling. I feel I'm meant to do this just because I'm successful. If I wasn't successful with it, I would think, why am I doing this? It wouldn't make any sense, but I'm successful.
That's awesome. So I guess to create context and just to tell you a little bit about me, because it's important that I do. So I'm a happily married man, right? For over 30 years, I've been married, and my wife is my soulmate and my best friend.
You're lucky.
Yeah, I truly love and adore my wife.
That's huge.
That's huge, right? So I'm one of the lucky ones. However, when preparing for this episode, I tried to look through the lens of a single guy. And when I did, I have to tell you, it worried me a little bit. I wondered if I were that guy, where would I go to meet someone? Could I trust that they were who I thought they were or who they said they were? Or, I wondered, like, okay, in every relationship, there's a little bit of a honeymoon period. And what would happen when that ended? And so on. And it made me wonder, like, why now? Why has matchmaking or for some dating apps become popular? Are people out less? Are they too busy? Is it that most folks, have a hard time balancing work and play? Or maybe with a growing lack of trust, people want their potential mate to be vetted. What is it in today's society that is making matchmaking a popular way to go about finding a potential love interest?
I think it's just because and I actually call this choice paralysis with the apps, because so many single people right now, because of technology, it's brought people to the apps, and there's so many choices that people are actually not making a choice. It's actually working against them. So instead of having the opportunity to actually meet more people, you're meeting less people or you're meeting no people. So then people are asking themselves, what do we do now? We need to go back to basics. We need to go back to a time when people used to set each other up, and that's what a matchmaker does. I tell people I don't send them out on endless dates. Everybody gets one person at a time, and they focus on that person and they become present and they get to know that person. And they need to understand that I selected that match because I felt very strongly that it was a good match. It's a different consciousness. It's a different mindset. It's bringing humanity into the picture again, which is something that we lost.
So as you're saying that, I mean, that maybe you could elaborate a little bit on, because perhaps, and I know this is not a dating app, and I would want people to know that right away, because I think from what I've heard you say in the past, this is very different.
This is a high-end service, an elite high-end, specially curated.
This is a high-end service. What do you think people would misunderstand about what you're actually doing? Let's say this is something that's generational, and maybe somebody that looks at it that is maybe, a little bit uncertain about what it would actually be. What would be something they would not understand or perhaps misunderstand?
I think that they misunderstand maybe, what they call rejection. That people take things personally and they really shouldn't, because I think if someone doesn't want to go out with somebody again, they really shouldn't take it personally. It just means that's not your person. That's all it is. It's not that they weren't tall enough or they weren't pretty enough or they weren't rich enough. It's nothing to really do with that. It just means that it wasn't the right person. And that means you need to meet the next person, and God willing, that will be your mate. That's a big misunderstanding. It's something they don't really see, that it's like people are feeling that they're being rejected or turned down. But I tell them it's actually a blessing, because that means their process is shortened, and that means the right person will come to them in time. They don't want to waste their time with someone that's not for them.
Gotcha. So that makes me wonder, do you believe that everyone has multiple potential soulmates, or is there somewhere out there a single soulmate, or is compatibility really a hard thing to find?
Well, our sages tell us actually in some of the Jewish texts that we actually had 18 different soulmates. So there are actually 18 different possibilities in our lifetime.
Okay, that's encouraging.
Yeah, it is encouraging. And they say that, I think you've heard this expression, people are in our life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, or what Kabbalah says as tikkun purposes. And the word tikkun means for your correction. So maybe a relationship ended because the correction was completed. And now the creator wants you to move on to the next relationship where you can again develop and grow, reach your soul's potential. So that may be why a relationship may end.
Okay. So with that in mind, so when you're curating a relationship, I am sure, there are times when somebody might believe, okay, it was love at first sight. And maybe other times, patience is required. What do you do when coaching a couple through either case? Love at first sight, or perhaps they need to be a little bit more patient with it. How do you go about that?
I think they're basically equal, because you can't really necessarily go by that. It is nice to feel that. And it definitely does happen, but it doesn't mean that relationship's maybe the creator wanted to get those people's attention because they needed to be together for a short time. It doesn't mean they're going to end up. And the people that didn't have that spark at the beginning, it just probably means that they need to go out on a few more dates and maybe they'll develop it. I mean, we all want a handbook to be able to read and, be able to feel confident and comfortable with. This is how a relationship goes. This is how I know it's my soulmate. And it would be wonderful. But unfortunately, there isn't anything like that. We need to turn it over and surrender it to, I say, to a higher power. And I surrender it. And when I make the choices, I don't make the decisions.
So is there a point though when somebody is in a relationship that you're coaching whereby you might say, I think it's time that we go in a different direction?
I wouldn't say that. I would leave it up to them because I really tried to do what I can to save the relationships because I think people are so quick to say no. No, not for me. No, not for me. This is a problem. And my job really is because I see the whole picture from the outside. I think that you're overreacting, and this has to do with getting to know the person or the relationship's reached a new level of growth. And now you need to earn that new level with some challenges. So it's usually not me, it's usually them because I'm trying to build them and I'm trying to like let them see that maybe they're seeing something that is not important, let's say, or I try to change the consciousness and perspective so it's a little bit more mature.
And I think a little bit more honest, because one of the things you mentioned there is because maybe there will be challenges and every relationship has them. And I've often thought that people generally give up too soon in regard to relationships. And like a lot of things in life, it's like relationships have become somewhat disposable. And so how do you coach clients to hang in there when the going gets tough? Because it will.
Well, I basically speak about their prior relationships and everybody has a learning curve from prior relationships and a lot of that relates. I try to bring back prior lessons. I get to know people very, very well, so I understand what happened in the prior relationships. And if I see that they're repeating the same mistake, I'll point that out. The way I coach them is to widen their consciousness. So they're not seeing the small picture, but they're seeing the big picture. And most people only see the details. They don't see the big picture. And if they can widen their consciousness and have a bigger understanding of what's going on, then they actually change their perspective.
And that's important. And I wonder in that process, because it sounds complicated, but in that process, is there a possibility that somebody might be settling? And how do they know when they've reached the pinnacle of what a relationship could be versus maybe this is just good enough?
It's a really good question. I say turn it over. I say every morning when I wake up and I call it coffee with God. I have a cup of coffee and I sit down and I have like a chair in front of me and I pretend God is there and I say, good morning, God. Good morning, God. Tell me what to do with my life today. What do you think about this guy? What do you think about, that couple over there? And I don't know what I should say. I ask God what I should say to people. So that's what I tell people. You have your conversation, you have your coffee or you have your cocktail with God, depending upon what time of day it is. And you have the conversation and you ask because we are limited by the five senses and we live in this physical universe, which we really don't know. We don't know, but who does know? Our higher power knows. When we turn it over, we will get an answer. And when we keep asking and we're open, we might not like the answer, but we'll get an answer.
That's a great way to start your day.
That's what I do. I call it coffee with God. I love it.
Not only from what I've gathered, do you introduce potential new soulmates, you also kind of reunite couples who may have been, soulmates in the past. Maybe they broke up. And when you do that, how does that work? How do you reunite couples and what's the process?
Well, that only happened once, and that was actually by accident. I know what you're referring to. A woman came to me, fixed me up. And for whatever reason, I wasn't in front of my computer. And most people always say send photographs. And, I send photographs. And for some reason, I had just had a strong feeling about these two people. And I said, you know, you live here, he lives there, meet at the Modern. It's a fabulous restaurant bar on East 53rd Street in the city. I said, I want you to meet there, meet at this time, just do it for me. Do it tomorrow. I know he's going to be in town. You're here. Just go. They both agreed to go. And little did I know that, or they knew that they were boyfriend, girlfriend before they had broken up.
Wow, how about
And
that?
so they're sitting and they're out for drinks and they're laughing. No one can believe because the chances of that kind of synchronicity are like ridiculous, right? So the long story short, they ended up getting back together. So no coaching involved there. Let's just call it,
A higher power.
let's call it divine presence.
There you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. Now, if you were to describe yourself and the role you play, do you feel part like a matchmaker? Are you part therapist? Are you part coach? Do you wear a lot of hats, or how would you describe it beyond just the title matchmaker?
I would say spiritual coach, matchmaker, friend. I really work very, very, very closely with people. That I actually feel like I do end up being, maybe coach, mother, sister, very, very closely with people because we really speak intimately about what's going on, what happened in their past, trying to solve problems and relationships now. So my roles are always changing. And I put on whatever hat I need to at any given time. And that changes with who I'm dealing with, whether it's a younger person or an older person, a man or a woman, it kind of changes. I meet people at the level that they feel comfortable. There's a level and there's a role that I can play that I'm going to be the best channel for them. And that's where I meet them.
You talked earlier about, you're in New York City and, there's quite a social scene and you have quite a network. Just to go back to something I asked earlier, because I'm kind of curious about what your thoughts are on this. Even in a city like New York, where there potentially could be a big social scene and the network could be large, do you find that people are not balancing work and play well enough, and it's kind of prohibiting them from getting out there, which is making a matchmaking service something necessary? And I guess I'm trying to ask, what is it that's preventing people from getting out there and maybe doing it on their own? Has something changed over time?
I think it's technology has made everything harder and worse for people. I mean, before technology and before we had cell phones, before we had all these apps, people went out, they met each other. I lived in New York my whole life. You went to school, you worked all day, and then you went out at night and you met people. You were introduced to people. You go to parties. This in New York, it was fun. New York's fabulous. There's like plenty of places to go. And it's become seemingly so difficult. I think it's because people have started relying on the apps and they started becoming too lazy to go out, too lazy to mingle. And then communication has been more difficult because we used to have, I grew up in Virginia with a telephone we didn't even have call waiting. We had a busy signal. I had to usually call if I was trying to get to my mom and she was on the phone, I would call the operator and I could say, could you please, I need emergency interruption. And that's how I would get through to her to tell her to get off the phone. So it's like people aren't comfortable communicating. People don't even make phone calls now, they text. And I think it's just become much more intimidating possibly to go out and meet people. And they're relying on the apps and then the apps are not working. So between all of that, it's just kind of a, recipe for failure, I think.
Yeah, and you said something in there that I think is quite profound. You said that perhaps people are too lazy to mingle. And when you said that, I thought there is a lot of value in mingling. It sounds so simple, but I think you're right. I think people have lost the art of knowing what it means to mingle.
Right. But what's connected to mingling? Communication, speaking on a telephone. Because people don't even want to talk, they want to text. And then there's miscommunication when you're texting because it's a more difficult means of communication. So I think it's all connected, actually.
I think you're right.
This generation, my nieces are in their 20s, and I think it's making them just, socially very immature.
I would agree 100%. To go back to the lens that I look through, if you could just for a moment, I'm like a lot of people. Oftentimes life is fast paced and oftentimes people, me included, become preoccupied. And I have to tell you, there's a story I thought about, my own story prior to this interview, where I remember being out one night to dinner with my wife and I actually saw her. And what I mean by that, I wasn't just present at the table across from her. I actually literally profoundly saw her. And it was overwhelming.
Were you consciously trying to do that or just you found yourself like present?
I found myself present and literally looking at her overwhelmed me because I found that I saw her versus maybe being preoccupied. Now, she would say, yeah, he's often preoccupied. But in this one moment, it made me realize that I had a lot of work to do. And I guess my question for you is, how do you help clients slow down and really see the person in front of them?
Well, well, I have to do it. Actually, I control the number of people they go out with, first of all. Nobody goes out on a lot of dates. I hate the word date. I don't want to send people out on dates. I want to send people out with an appropriate match. And God willing, that will be their match. And if not, I'll send them out on another match. But when they're out with that match, that's it. There's nobody else in the background. And I tell them, you focus on that person. There is a reason you came to a matchmaker. There is a reason that you're out with this person. There's no accidents or coincidences. Pay attention. There's reasons that this is happening this evening. And I try to change the consciousness so I am putting them more in a present state because everybody's looking for, the bigger, better deal and what's on the back burner. And the answer is there is nothing there right now. And there's nothing that matters except this person right now you're going out with, which is a lovely, eligible person. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sending you out.
That's great. And so, with that, is there something that men and women you think consistently get wrong about being in a relationship? Like you just went through that example. Is there something that they get wrong where they're not understanding something that might make them either want to stay or, let's say, bail?
I think they have to understand that in order for a relationship to grow, there are going to be some, let's call them opportunities for growth, which will maybe appear as problems or obstacles. It doesn't mean the relationship is over or it's not working out. It just means that your higher power, the creator, is demanding the vessel to grow and the couple to grow and this relationship to be stronger and better. But there have to be some challenges to overcome so the vessel of the relationship can grow. So I think people like mistaken that for a relationship not working out because suddenly there's some issues. The issues are enriching the relationship.
So, it sounds to me like it's an intentional process. And do you go into it explaining to clients that it is a process? Do you give them like the guide as they enter into this potential relationship, or is it really on their own behalf? They have to explore it on their own.
Yeah, there's no, as I was saying before, I wish we had like a little guidebook we could hand out to everybody when they sign up here, but it's really not that way. It's go with the flow. Every individual is different. Every couple's different. People need to be spoken to in different ways and relationships, progress and mature and, in different ways. Some are like progress speedily ahead and some are like extremely slow. And there's some people that are very scared and nervous and really take their time. So that's why this is like, again, a very select curated service tailored to each person.
Yeah, and I know the word curated is a word that's used a lot lately, and that's part of what you're doing. You're helping people curate.
That's really the value. That's where the value lies, I would say. There's a lot of time and attention that's put into that.
So if we could, we're going to move into something that I'm going to call like a quick round. I'm going to ask you if it's okay with you, like a quick prompt, and if you could kind of elaborate with a quick response. And we'll see as we're going into Valentine's Day how this might assist people in their pursuit of a mate. So what do you think is one thing people overthink when dating?
I think what they overthink is that they're judging too quickly. I mean, that's what they're overthinking, the fact that they're judging. It's that.
What's one red flag you should never ignore?
I hate to say it, but being cheap is bad. It's really bad.
That is super honest. You can't be more honest than that. All right, what about a green flag people underestimate?
Maybe somebody, too nice. They'll like, judge somebody as being weak, just because they're so nice and they're so amenable.
I've heard people say, I'm not sure that person could be that nice, when in fact, yes, they can.
It's like the too good to be true syndrome. Like, how could this be?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. What about a small moment that can lead to a big connection?
Maybe like a quick revelation. So you ever, sometimes these aha moments and suddenly it's just like a sudden revelation or a sudden message or sudden someone could channel something to you. It's like, why is that person channeling an answer to something sort of just have you ever had that happen to you? It's just a feeling of like you get an answer, something appears, you get like a certain kind of a clarity, or maybe you'll even see when you're out with that person, something that you kind of sudden realization that you realize, well, this is something that I really value. This is something that, oh, I know I need this, or I didn't know I really liked that. But yeah, that is something that's important.
Yeah, and I think it goes along with something you said earlier that really there is no such thing as a coincidence. So maybe there's times when something happens.
It's all divinely planned.
Right. So you have to kind of appreciate that in the moment and be aware. I guess has to be a sense of awareness in the moment to be present. So what about a quality you see in couples who last?
They come to the relationship with a consciousness to share, not to take. What can I do for this person? How can I make their life better? How can I give them more love? How can I help their children? They're not my children, but they're his children. How can I give? How can I share? Not what am I getting? What can I take? And if both people are thinking that, the relationship is going to be very successful.
Yeah, so it's not, what are you going to do for me? It's more about, what can I do for you?
Exactly. It's really important.
I think that's awesome. Now, as we get into the kind of final question here, and as I've mentioned a few times, we'll be airing this right before Valentine's Day. And for anyone listening this Valentine's Day, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's about to give up on finding a soulmate or discouraged on finding true love, what would that one piece of advice be?
The advice is you don't know what you don't know. So your life can change in a second, in a heartbeat. And I've seen it many times over. So don't give up hope. Do not, because anything's possible, really. Things change. You'd be really surprised. I've seen it.
Don't give up hope. That's a great way to end. Rachel, I want to thank you for sharing your insight and reminding us that meaningful connections come with honesty, patience, and paying attention. And if you would like to learn more about Rachel, you can check her out at jewishmatchmakingnewyork.com or on her socials at Jewish Matchmaking New York. Thanks for listening to Harmony Talk, where dreamers and doers remind us what's possible. Special thanks to AM Skyer for supporting the show. If you enjoyed today's conversation, sign up for our newsletter at HarmonyTALKpodcast.com and hear more inspiring stories from dreamers and doers. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep doing, and keep moving forward.